Hello and welcome to Norwood Digest. We're having a special edition joined by an old friend of mine and an old friend of all of you, because once you see who it is, you'll be saying, oh my God, that's Helen Donohue, former select person, selectman, I guess we still call him here. And Helen, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. This is the first of what we hope is many sessions where we just kind of sit and talk about the old times and get to know things about the Norwood and maybe each other.
Thank you. Thanks, Jack. And we've talked about doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
And the reason is because each time we start to talk, it gets to be so pleasant, you know? And it's made me think a lot about you.
Uh-oh.
And I know that you're supposed to have me talk, but I want you to know that you've been helping out here for about 20 years. And each time that I catch you on TV and I see the way that you treat people who you interview and the breadth of the knowledge that you have about the different topics, but most importantly, the kind and friendly way that you treat the people who you're talking to. And you've had such an interesting background. How we lucked out to catch you here in Norwood, that just when you were, could you tell us a tiny bit about it, how you came to Norwood?
Sure. So my wife and I moved here in '87. I was working at Raytheon. She was working in town. Interestingly enough, we met at Raytheon, but after we got married, she moved on. And at Raytheon, my immediate supervisor lived on First Street in Norwood. His name was Paul Bonda. His name is Paul Bonda. And I was over his house a couple of times, and I had driven through the center of town, and I just fell in love with the center of town, really. That's what made me start looking for houses here.
So that's amazing how we were lucky enough to get you. When you think, you went to Latin school.
I did.
And that was the hardest school to get into, girls Latin and boys Latin, for people who lived in the city.
Yeah.
And you did it, you know?
Yeah, and one of my classmates lives in Norwood as well, and you all know him. It's Joe Greeley, who was my classmate at Latin school, was my classmate at Holy Name, and even in kindergarten at the Mozart.
And so he, Joe Greeley, with the trails now, he's
Yes.
kept up on everything, community preservation, so many things. But it's like you came to Norwood, you chose Norwood, and you've added so much, Jack.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I sit here and I want to call you Mr. Jack. That's how much, I have that much respect for you. And thank you for everything.
This has been a great place for Linda and I to move to, and we raised our two children here, and
Two girls?
two girls.
How old are they now?
Oh boy, 32 and 27.
Wow, how fast that was.
I know.
That's hard to believe. 32 and 27?
Yeah, when I first became moderator, I had no children. So my kids, grew up with seeing all the stuff that we were doing,
So, in your career in public service, I heard that you're retired now. Could you please just tell us what the thing that hit you the most was, the biggest event that happened to you?
Well, I think that's a good question. The biggest event. Let me answer it two ways. My favorite job that I ever had in government, or anywhere, quite frankly, was the last job I had as executive director of the Mass School Building Authority. This building we're sitting in was the MSBA helped build this building.
Right.
And
It was one of the plans that they knew about and so
yes,
forth.
this was the model school.
Oh,
And
model
This
school's
was
the
the
term
first
for it.
model school ever built in the Commonwealth.
Wow.
And I had a little to do with it back in those days. I was working for the Inspector General, Greg Sullivan, at the time, another
Right.
Norwood guy.
Right.
And so I wasn't even working for MSBA, but the former executive director came to our office, and we were talking one day, and she said, oh, I got good news. We're going to invite Norwood in to build a new high school. And I was thinking that, we had, the IG's office had been kind of pushing a model school program for a while. And so I said, this might be the opportunity to get somebody to build it. And
Wow.
And the thing was, it saved us probably $32 million
Oh,
by going with the model school program.
wow.
So that maybe that was the big event, but my happiest job was when I succeeded Catherine Craven as executive director of the Mass School Building Authority.
Wow.
And being a public school kid myself, it really made me happy that I could drive in towns now all across the Commonwealth and I could see a building that kids were in there being educated and I had something to do with it. And
That's
just an
amazing.
amazing feeling.
That is an amazing feeling. That's a truly amazing feeling. So thanks. That's very good. So nationwide thought, now Jimmy Carter, former President Carter, and if it's okay, I'd just like to mention, did you know that President Carter came to Norwood one time?
I think the only reason I know that is because you've told me that before. So why don't you tell us about that?
Okay, so he's being talked about now about the great job that he's done, not only as president, but after he was president, and how many times and how much help. Well, in Norwood, one of the outstanding people that we've had is a friend of yours and mine, Tommy Riolo. And Tommy was a public school guy. Tommy was a Korean War veteran. And he always got into situations like you do, big time. I remember you from the Democratic conventions. I remember you waltzing around with all of the heavy hitters in the Democratic government here in the conventions. And Tommy was the same way. He always seemed to, come up. And so he brought Jimmy Carter to Norwood. And President Carter was on the campaign trail. And I remember Tommy taking him to the police station, the fire station, the town hall. But he took him to some other places, too. He took him, up to the Wings, I think.
Oh, no kidding.
And he took him to Bay Bank on the main street. And someone on the computer said that they have a picture of President Carter in front of the United Church.
Oh, nice.
That Glenn Close, or somebody said that on the computer recently. But he really always did the same thing as you. He was always in the, Joe DiNucci.
Great guy, Joe DiNucci.
And I remember you with Joe DiNucci at the convention. And those, the famous fighter, the famous Commonwealth auditor. And then when we had the national convention years ago in Boston, my sister and I parked the car in the garage, the Brinks Robbery Garage down by the North End. So my sister and I are walking over to the convention, and Joe DiNucci came out of that famous Italian restaurant on the corner that all the politicians used to go to, and he says, "And these are my friends from Pennsylvania." And that's how you have been. You, like Greg Sullivan and John Rogers, and who else out of the Massachusetts heavy hitters?
Well, I was chief of staff for Bill Galvin, the Secretary of State.
Who is still there.
Yeah, I know, it's amazing.
They tried to bounce him out.
I know.
And now I just got my notice to be a notary. I've been a notary since I was 21. And he's going to be there maybe in another 100 years.
He set the record for that office, that's for sure.
And
he was probably the smartest guy I ever worked for. Now, it's probably a tie, because Greg Sullivan's pretty sharp, too.
Oh, Greg Sullivan's very sharp.
And those two were just brilliant people to work with.
Really?
Yeah.
And poor Galvin, they tried to bounce him out.
Yeah.
That was awful.
I know.
And he's still there. But his voice now about, what's the latest issue he's talking about on the television? I'm trying to think. But he's pretty wonderful, So it's nice.
Yeah, I've had a great career. I started working for the government for Mike Conley when he was Secretary of State. And he was right before Galvin.
But who appointed you?
Mike Conley. And then I worked, when did I go? 92. And then Mike didn't run in 94, and Bill Galvin did. And so it was kind of interesting when the transition, and it was great because they didn't run against each other, so it was they were, both Democrats, happy to help each other. But Bill Galvin is an interesting guy. His transition team consisted of himself, Mike Conley, and me.
Really?
Yeah, because he wasn't one to have a lot of people around.
Wow.
And so that's how I got to know him really well, because of that.
Wow.
And that's why he made me his chief of staff.
Wow. That was something. I remember going in there to the Ashburton Place office when they moved in there, and going to the where you file the corporation papers. And there's Tom Cummings
I was just
from
going to say
Norwood.
Tom Cummings and
Tom's
Joe Sheehan as well.
And Joe
from
Sheehan was a young man then.
Yeah.
That's before he even became an attorney, wasn't
Right.
it?
Yes.
And I mean, it was to go into the city and to be amongst Norwood people. That was a big thing.
Yeah, yeah.
That was
And
really
when,
something.
when I was practicing too, I would go up there, same thing, and that's how I got to know Joe before. No, I was already here, but I didn't know him.
Right.
And then same with Tom Cummings, I got to know him through that.
And so Tom Cummings had so much to do with this Norwood Community Media.
Yeah.
We had that talk show, and in the end, Joan Jacobs and I would always he'd always complain about his Redwood Drive not being swept. And Joan Jacobs and I first it was Richard Keefe and I used to torture him, and then it was Bob Capasso and I used to torture him, and then Joan Jacobs and I about Redwood Drive. That's what it always talk about. You've been through all of that, Jack. You have been through, what, Norwood Digest, what else?
Here, this really just Norwood Digest is although, no, I take that back. The first thing we used to do was cover the election. And, you say Tom Riolo, it was myself, Tom Riolo, and Joe Curran, and Rich Serrani.
Rick Serrani but see, he never helped out like you have.
Well, he was a behind-the-scenes guy. He did a lot that people don't know.
He did?
Yes.
Because maybe it was part of his job, but all of the stuff that you have done, you've done as a volunteer, Jack.
Yes.
I want to call you Mr. Jack. No, seriously, I have such great respect. When you think all these hours that you put in, thousands of hours that you've put in educating all of us, thank you.
But it's a labor of love. I don't even think of it as...
You wouldn't be here if it wasn't a labor of love.
And these people here at NCM, they are so good. Like, I take my lead from them, and I just kind of get the vibe from them, and I try to bring that vibe forward. They're all the same. They just want to help people. It's amazing.
When I think of how we all started down the Norwood Arena, Adams Russell, Time Warner, Adams Russell, God bless Joe Gallant. Do you know that he died?
I did. I did not know that.
He died, and it was about almost a year now.
Oh, wow.
And he was a student of mine when I was a school teacher, so it was just my good luck that he liked me. So when Auntie Brenda Babel worked at the town hall for 42 years, and he'd come in the office up there to the building office, and he would say, I have a show, and I need an audience. So Auntie Brenda Babel rounded up a bunch of us. We'd be down the studio, and he held, one of his things on his show was discussing the newspaper. And so he would say, is that the truth, or is it a rumor? And so, and then all of us, remember that? And all of us would go, yay! We were all clapping.
Yeah,
we were so happy to be there with him.
He was on all the time then.
And he was on for years,
Yeah.
and he started us out.
Yeah.
He really helped us start out, because it was pretty crowded down there at the studio. But I'll never forget Richard Keefe, how he thought of this wonderful idea of bringing us here.
Yeah.
And this was the correct place to be.
Absolutely.
This was the correct place to be, because this is what we're about. We're about trying to help young people get into the world and educate young people. And that's what you guys have done.
So, Mr.
The people you have helped, Jack.
Yes. Well, it's funny. I was talking to the assistant principal today, and I asked him how his son, he graduated last year, and he's down at Bryant, and I said, hey, how do you
Good
do
school.
first semester? Yeah. He said, he said he did really good, but he said he took almost the same kind of courses he took here. 'Cause the kid was a smart kid. He took AP stats here, AP this, and he took a TV course down there.
Oh.
And he said this, and I hear this from the kids all the time when they come back. He said he walked into the TV studio down at Bryant. He goes, my high school TV studio is way better than this. And
They
so,
must have not liked that at Bryan. And that's a good school.
yeah. And it's like these kids are lucky, and sometimes they don't realize how lucky they are till they're gone.
No, but they do. I think they do, because first the Tom Cummings show, then working with the selectmen 21 years, and then now and then, and you see these young people come through here and go on in their lives. Like, if it's not an announcer or this or that, it's someone, a programmer, someone in California, someone in New York.
Yeah.
All started here.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and when they were small.
Yes. Some of them, like my kids took the course when they were in middle school. That,
Right.
What's called Lights, Camera, Summer.
Right.
And now with the new middle school, they're going to have their own studio. It won't be as
Wow.
elaborate as this.
Right.
Because they wouldn't be ready for this yet, you know.
Right.
But they'll be that much further ahead when they get up here.
Right.
So.
That's pretty wonderful.
Yeah.
That is. So we talked a little bit about Carter. We talked a little bit about Tommy Riolo, and I just enjoyed being here. You know.
Well, it's great having you here. Yeah, every time I'm with you, I learn something. And so you just said something about down at Adams Russell, the old Norwood Arena.
Oh yeah.
Now that all happened before I got here.
Well, in a way, that's lucky for you because it was. It's really, we're supposed to talk about the 50s, but I can go back further than that, you know. And but if you want to talk about the Norwood Arena, the people that were involved in the Norwood Arena were people who were active around town. Like one of the people was Herb Anderson.
Yeah.
And who else? Who else was?
Well, I don't know much about it, so I just looked today real quick. I did a Google search, and they listed some of the drivers.
Oh, the
And
drivers, yeah.
I heard names like Denzel. So wasn't that a dealership here at one point?
I don't
An
remember
Oldsmobile?
Denzel's dealership, but I remember Norwood Arena from the political side.
Okay.
And but former selectman Jerry Kelleher did a wonderful movie,
Right.
and the King, Mr. King, did a wonderful movie about the Norwood Arena, and you can still get the information about that. But Harry Butters had to do something with it.
Okay.
And Carl that had the Norwood Cadillac, they all were in on it. And of all things, around 1954, the drag strip, I think, is what caused the end. And so in 1954, Alex Will built the drag strip. And so who can tell a really good story about it? Former selectman Alan Howard.
Yeah.
When he was a kid, there were 7 kids in his family. And, well, my husband Paul lived up on Nickel Street, and he could hear every bit of the Norwood Arena up on Nickel Street.
Yeah, wow.
And so Alan Howard told the story about how his father would wait until the intermission that they had in the middle of it. Then he'd take all of his 7 kids down there, and they would sell peanuts in the stands. And as a result, when he was there selling peanuts in the stand, there was a car crash, and a tire flew off and killed a woman in the balcony and the seats, bleachers at the Norwood Arena. So then, across the highway began to be developed. And who came to Norwood but Tom DeFrancia?
I remember Tom from town meeting.
And he was wonderful. But he put a group together that shut down the Norwood Arena.
Tom was a force to be reckoned with.
And he was there were lots of exciting things that happened about it. There was a selectmen's meeting, and Tom DeFrancia brought a very strong group with him, and there was a controversy, big controversy. So the Norwood police were ready for it. So it was when my sister was on the Board of Selectmen, so that must have been around 1969 and 1970. And so they were all sitting up there in Memorial Hall at the table, and Tom DeFrancia and his group lurched forward up toward the tables,
Right.
and the selectmen were whisked out the side door by the cops down the stairs.
Wow.
That happened, and it was all about the Norwood Arena. And so the Norwood Arena was shut down. And so that was a big thing. A lot of people liked it, but it was the right thing to do. But Tom DeFrancia, he did something really, really more important than that. He pushed and he pushed and he shoved until we got an elevator for the town of Norwood, town hall.
Oh, wow.
And we never would have got it if it wasn't for him and his strength, you know. And Ed Page was a different part of the group about keeping the airport under control in size. So I go over and sit in the garden in Milton in the summertime, and that's all I see, these huge planes.
Yeah.
Milton! all over, boom, 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 and they're huge planes.
And yeah, the main route it goes right over Milton. Yeah.
And I mean, here we are in Norwood, thank goodness, you know. But the Norwood Arena, so the woman was killed in the stands, and there was so much smoke and so much dirt, and that was the end of it, you know. But for all the information about the car drivers, and I guess they had some pretty fancy, famous people with those famous cars, and Mr. Heltman, Carl Heltman's son, Johnny, was a student of mine, and he was into those race cars, you know?
Yeah.
And that was too much for Norwood, I think. So Jim Shane bought the whole property down there, and around 72, he created the park, the industrial park that we have there. And Jim Shane was the first American to have clothes manufactured in China.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the name of his clothing line was Faded Glory. And he was a young man then. He's still around. He lives in Boston now. But he comes out to Norwood, and he has a wonderful helper who takes care of the property for the rest that he owns there.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So let's talk about you a little now.
Okay.
I believe I have this correct, that you were the first female class president at Norwood High?
I was, but that was important. But when I was in the 7th grade, I was at the junior high school, and Mr. Cochran asked a friend, Billy Bazzi, and I, to start student council in the junior high school level, so we did. So then, all along, Bill Bazzi and I, he was the class president and the president of student council, and I was the vice, and so in the senior year, it was determined by the administration that you couldn't be both the president of the senior class and the president of student council. So I said to the person, I said, pick what you want and I'll take the other one, I'll run for the other one. And so the person said, oh, we can't have you, Helen, you're a girl.
Ooh.
And so my husband, Paul, was the captain of the football team. And I was just with the regular people, you know, and not the super, super intelligent people. And so he says, why don't you go for it? And so the day of the election, there was the main school of the Peabody School. There was a hallway in between. And the school was borrowed the voting boxes that they had so the students could vote in the hallway in the boxes. So a particular individual was standing at the door, and each class would come in that say, oh, we really like Helen, but she's a girl. And so that was hard, you know.
Yeah.
But so my husband and his friends helped me out, and so I won. And then that was 1963. There wasn't another girl class president, female class president, until many, 16, I think, years later or so. And who was it? Paula and Bobby Horn's daughter.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, and that many years went by. And then another interesting thing happened in my life. I became an attorney, and so Barry Hannon, who you knew very well, he was a pal of yours too.
Yeah.
He was prince of a guy, the Register of Deeds. And so we were at an event, and I said, how do you become a member of that council? Because there is a council to the association, and you get chosen from the council to run for office. And so he says, you want to go on that? I says, oh, I'd love to. So he put me on. So I went through 3 years as a member of the council. Then they either advance you or you're gone. Or not gone out of the council, but so 3 years went by and they didn't advance me. And so I came home to my husband and my sister, and so they said, I said, I've read the rules, I'm gonna run from the floor. And my sister said, just give it one more year and see what happens, see if you can get yourself nominated. So I gave it one more year, and sure enough, I got nominated, and they said, we're going to advance you. You don't have to start off at the bottom because that's the secretary, and we don't want them to think we're putting you on because you're making you be a secretary because you're a female.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I don't know. And so then I advanced. So in 1991, I became the first president of the Bar Association of Norfolk County, and that was the oldest bar association in the country.
Wow.
And Boston thought they were older than us, but it was proven that we incorporated more formally than Boston. And so now, until I croak, my name is on the bottom. And like I get invited to all these wonderful things.
Oh, that's nice.
So like last Friday, we celebrated the inauguration of Walter Timothy Jr. taking over his father's job.
Yep.
And I was there. I went, of course, because I loved Joe Timothy,
Yep.
his brother. I loved him. And Walter, I was friends with the father, Walter Jr.'s father. But another thing that made it so special for me, Mr. Jack, was the fact that Paul Barbadoro was there.
Oh, wow.
I see you've been an attorney all your
Yeah.
life, so you know who. And for those who don't know who Paul Barbadoro was, his father was Nick Barbadoro, who was the clerk of the Norfolk County Superior Court. And the interesting thing about Nick Barbadoro was he took over when Jack Kincannon,
Yeah.
when he retired. And at that time, when Jack Kincannon retired, Nick Barbadoro was 75 years old. And everyone says, oh, he's too old to run. He's too old to run. So he went swimming every morning in the pool in Quincy, and he exercised. He had all his marbles. He knew the court inside out. And so it was a 5-year term, I think. And so he decided to run. And all the cases that I had ever had, he was so kind to me and so nice to me. And so I said, I'd be glad to help you up in Norwood. So when he ran, he came out to the Norwood parade, the 4th of July parade, and his wife Natalie came. And she stayed at my house, and he walked the whole parade. And then 5 years went by fast.
I bet.
And so then he says, I'm going to run for re-election. I says, good, because he was still doing the job,
Right.
and he was doing great. So he served until 1984. So when they said the other day that that Walter Timothy Sr. had started in 84, Nick Barbadoro's son, Paul, was sitting 2 rows in front of me. So I told some stranger to tap him ask the stranger to tap him on the shoulder. So he turned around, and I went, I couldn't help it, you know.
Yeah.
He did a great job, the father, you know.
Yeah.
And where have our lives gone?
I don't know.
The-
But young Walter, great senator. I had the pleasure of dealing with him many times, especially at the MSBA. He was a big supporter of the MSBA.
Was he?
And, yeah. And I was so glad he won.
And so this man, the courthouse was jammed. And so there was a man standing. I was sitting on a bench, man standing there, and we started to talk. And he had come from Plymouth. He's a senator now. It's an Italian name, just something or other.
I can see his face. I know who you're talking
And
about.
so he was very pleasant.
Yeah,
And
handsome guy.
And he said that, too thin for me. So he said to me that he and Walter Jr. had originally been elected senators on the same day, and he had come from Plymouth to come to the ceremony, you know.
And now Mary Hickey's retired, right?
Oh, no.
Oh, she's still there?
Mary
She
Hickey.
was the best. When I first started, my God, you talk about how Barbadero was with you. That's you know, if I had any, and, you know, when you start, you're not sure about things, you know. And she was so kind to me.
Jack, she does, I'd say, 90% of the work.
I'm glad for young Walter that she's still there.
Absolutely, because she has taught everybody. And Mary Hickey from Norwood.
Yeah.
And Eileen was there, her sister. Her sister Eileen worked in the treasurer's office for so many years.
Yes.
And Eileen now is supposed to be retired, and she's volunteering full time from the food pantry.
Oh, good for her.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
And Mary still goes there, and all during COVID, she was one of the few people who worked full time.
Wow.
And she'd get there. She always just got there around 6 o'clock in the morning. And any questions that come up, any cases that come up, it's Mary
Yeah.
Hickey that handles everything. You know,
Yeah.
but some of the old court officers were there too at the swearing in,
That's good.
and I love that Sacco
You know,
thing.
was Mike Pilati must have been there, was he?
Oh yeah, he told me that my daughter got mad at me because I told Mike that he should lose some weight, but it's because I'm worried about him.
Yeah.
And,
He goes up and down, big time.
oh, and he came in and he said to me very quietly, February 9th. So that's the day of Frank's memorial service.
okay.
His father died the week before Christmas.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to bother everybody with all the services. So he told me Friday that the memorial for his father will be February 9th.
Was
So
it St. Agatha's, or did they get it somewhere
I
else?
think I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But Joanne Vitale, you know, is very close to Frank.
Yes.
You know, they're good friends.
Yeah.
Because Frank's father was at Joanne's wedding.
No way.
Honest to God. Joanne's father and Frank were buddies. And so he and his wife came, how many years ago was that?
Yeah. That's amazing.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
It's what a world, you know.
But we've come across some great people.
It's gone so fast though,
Yeah.
Mr. Jack. I just I'm supposed to adjust to being old, but do you know how cold it is out there?
I hate the cold now.
Me too.
I just hate it.
I never understood why people went to Florida because when Jeff Fanning was alive and had his place down there, we used to go, and it seemed to me that everybody there was just searching around to find an early bird special,
Yeah.
so you could get a free glass of wine. And I says, I'm not going to do this, you know. And now I understand. They're there because of the cold.
Yes. I
You're
know.
avoiding the cold.
I know. Linda's still working, so we got a couple of years before we. But I don't know if
I'm not going to spend a lot of time there.
I'd like to go down for like a month or so, maybe. You know?
I get nervous after 4 days.
You know, I have some friends like that. Yeah.
But
Anyway, so let's do this, because we're going to run out of things if we keep going. But so let's plan another one,
okay.
and we'll wrap this one up.
Okay.
Just now, I forget. I used to know at one time, but how many children do you have?
I have 3 daughters. The oldest one, Olga. First of all, my mother and father graduated from Balch School. My sister, brother, and I graduated from Balch School. All 3 of my daughters graduated from Balch School, and that's why I stayed where I am, so I could have all the family. We love Balch School. We just had a fabulous time for Mr. Bellotta.
Yeah, I saw that.
So my oldest daughter, Olga, has lived now in Turkey.
Wow.
She works for the United States Department of State, and she's either lived in the consulate or the embassy in Turkey and Azerbaijan since 2012.
Wow.
And then the middle daughter, Molly, lives in Massachusetts. The youngest daughter, Anne, first lived in the city of New York and then now lives in the Catskills. And all 3, Molly was class valedictorian here, and all 3 girls went to Norwood High.
And which one was friends with Karen Feeney, who used to work here? Karen Murphy.
I
she
think
got married.
I think Molly.
Yeah, I thought it was Molly too.
Yeah, and Molly has my only grandchild.
Oh,
Yeah,
congratulations.
and
How
thanks,
old?
14.
Wow.
Yeah, she's a lovely.
Yeah, that would
little-
make sense, because Karen's kids are like that age too.
Yeah, and she's a lovely little girl, thank God, you know, Jack.
Yeah.
But the happiest days, like we brought back when Olga was in kindergarten. They said spaghetti supper, so they were having the Balch School spaghetti supper up at the St. Mary's Church Hall in East Walpole. So I said to somebody, "Why are we having the Balch School spaghetti supper out of town?" And they said, "Oh, because we can't use the kitchen." So good old Helen, you know what that meant. Phew. And so we got the rest of the spaghetti suppers we've always had now at Balch School. And then Al Poro started the pancake breakfast up at on the Nickel Street, the Cleveland School.
Right.
And so after Paul worked up there, 1 year later, Al and Paul started at Balch School with the pancake breakfast. And I could tell you, wait till we get to that. I got stories about that. And then, what else? In the Parents Music Association, marching band, madrigals. these were the best. Those were the best years for us.
Yeah.
Not only
absolutely.
for the kids, for us.
Right.
So when they Rosie West said you can be on, we want you on the PTA
PMA.
PMA board, and I says, oh sure, you can do hospitality. You only have to make coffee for the meetings. One year we sold $16,000 worth of food.
Nice.
And nothing sold more than $2. Oh, it was like a full-time job. But those were the happiest years.
So you just brought back a memory for me, the Balt Spaghetti Supper. The one in '92 when I ran for moderator for the first
Right.
time. My very first political event that I attended was the Balt School Spaghetti Supper.
That was, so $2. Homemade minestrone soup, pasta, beverage, coffee or soda or whatever, and dessert, $2. So we were all exhausted. So one person said, is there chicken in the soup? And so I was tired. And I looked up and I said, for $2, the chicken flew over the pot.
Very good.
You know.
What? Let's end it on a high note like
Okay,
that.
okay.
All right. Well, thanks for being with me. I hope
Thank
this
you.
is the first of many. And
I hope so.
and we'll do that. And so, thanks to the great crew here at NCM. Thanks for my co-host, because you can't call it my show after what has just happened
yes,
here.
you can, Mr. Jack. You sure can.
So we thank you for. We thank all the crew here. We thank you at home for allowing us into your living rooms. Good day and keep safe.